The airport lounge buzzed with the chaos of holiday travel. People hurried through the gates, luggage wheels rattling against the polished floor, boarding passes clutched in their hands like golden tickets. Among them was Emily Carter, a young nurse whose eyes reflected both fatigue and determination. Emily had been looking forward to this flight for weeks. She'd worked double shifts at the hospital, sacrificing her weekends and sleep to save up for this trip home. It wasn't just a vacation, it was her first chance in 3 years to see her family in Boston. Her mother had been unwell, and Emily longed to surprise her for Christmas. She checked her watch anxiously. Boarding had already started. As she adjusted the strap of her carry-on, she noticed a man struggling at the counter a few feet away. He wasn't dressed like most business travelers. His dark jeans and plain sweater looked simple, almost too simple, but his posture carried a quiet confidence. Beside him stood a little girl, no older than 5, clinging to his arm, her eyes heavy with sleep. The man's voice was low but tense as he spoke to the airline staff. "Please," he said, shifting the child onto his hip. "I just need one more seat. My daughter can't wait until tomorrow, she needs to get to New York tonight." The staff shook her head apologetically. "I'm sorry, sir. The flight is completely sold out." Emily froze. Something inside her stirred. The exhaustion in the man's eyes, the way he pressed a kiss onto his daughter's forehead, it reminded her of the fathers she'd seen at the hospital, sitting by their children's bedsides, desperate for a miracle. She stepped forward before her mind could stop her. "Excuse me," she said softly. The man turned, and for a moment their eyes met. His were sharp, storm gray, yet unexpectedly vulnerable. "You can have my seat." The airline agent blinked. "Are you sure, miss? This is the last ticket available." Emily nodded, even though her heart sank. She had dreamed of hugging her mother, of sitting by the fireplace, but this man's child needed him more. "Yes, I'm sure." The man's eyes widened. "You don't have to do that," he said, his voice rough. "You'll miss your flight." Emily gave a small smile. "It's okay. I can take another tomorrow." "She looks tired, and you both look like you need this more than I do." The little girl peeked at Emily from her father's shoulder and whispered, "Thank you." For a moment, silence hung between them. Then the man exhaled, as though releasing a weight he had carried far too long. "I don't even know your name." "Emily," she replied. He gave a faint, almost disbelieving smile. "Thank you, Emily. I won't forget this." A twist of fate. Emily spent the night in the airport hotel, trying not to dwell on the ache in her chest. She had given up her seat without regret, but still, she wished she could have been home. The next morning, she boarded another flight, not realizing that fate had woven her into a story far bigger than her own. Across the city, the man she had helped was sitting in a luxurious office tower that overlooked Manhattan. He was no ordinary father. He was Alexander Hale, CEO of Hale Industries, a self-made millionaire whose name commanded respect in boardrooms across the country. But few people knew that Alexander had once been just a struggling single dad, raising his daughter, Sophie, after losing his wife to illness. He had built his empire with sleepless nights and ruthless determination, but beneath the tailored suits and billion-dollar deals, he was still just a father who worried if he was enough. And last night, when his daughter had grown restless and weary in the crowded terminal, it had been Emily, the stranger who had given up her flight, who had reminded him of something he had forgotten. That kindness still existed in a world obsessed with wealth and status. An unexpected reunion. Days later, Emily finally made it home, spending quiet hours with her mother and siblings. The trip was short, but every second felt precious. When she returned to New York, life slipped back into its routine, shifts at the hospital, long nights, little time for herself. But Emily didn't know that Alexander Hale had been searching for her. He hadn't stopped thinking about the nurse with tired eyes and selfless courage. It wasn't just gratitude, it was curiosity, a pull he couldn't explain. He had millions of admirers, business associates, and opportunists begging for his time, but the one person he wanted to see again was the woman who had given him something money couldn't buy: humanity. One evening, as Emily walked out of the hospital, she noticed a sleek black car parked by the curb. The door opened, and out stepped the man from the airport. Her heart skipped. "You," he smiled faintly. He wasn't in his sweater this time but in a sharp navy suit. The contrast startled her. He looked powerful, untouchable. "Hello, Emily." She frowned, confused. "What are you doing here?" "I told you I wouldn't forget what you did for me," he said. "I wanted to thank you properly." Emily shook her head quickly. You don't have to. Really. Anyone would have done the same. No, he said firmly, his gray eyes locking onto hers. Not anyone. You gave up something precious without expecting anything in return. That's rare. Before she could respond, Sophie peeked out from behind him and waved shyly. Hi, Miss Emily. Emily's lips softened into a smile. Hi, sweetheart. Alexander watched the way his daughter lit up around her, and something in his chest tightened. Worlds collide. Over the following weeks, Alexander insisted on seeing Emily again. Sometimes he brought Sophie, sometimes he didn't. They met for coffee, for walks in the park, and little by little, Emily discovered the truth, that the man she had helped was not just a father, but one of the most powerful CEOs in New York. She was stunned. You're Alexander Hale, she whispered the first time she Googled his name. You own half of Manhattan. He chuckled. Not half, just a corner or two. Emily's instinct was to pull away. Their worlds were too different. She was a nurse living in a tiny rented apartment, counting every dollar until payday. He was a millionaire with private jets and penthouses. But Alexander wouldn't let her disappear. I don't care about money, Emily, he told her one evening as they sat watching the city skyline. I care about the way you looked at my daughter and saw a tired little girl, not the weight of my last name. And against her cautious heart, Emily began to care too. Love in disguise. Their friendship grew into something deeper. Emily found herself laughing again, something she hadn't done in months. Alexander, who had built walls around his heart since his wife's death, felt those walls crumble every time Emily's hand brushed his. Sophie adored her. She would tug at Emily's hand and say, Daddy smiles more when you're here. But the outside world wasn't kind. When tabloids caught a photo of the mysterious nurse dining with the millionaire CEO, headlines exploded. Reporters hounded her outside the hospital. Some of Alexander's business associates whispered that she was after his fortune. One night, Emily confronted him with tears in her eyes. This isn't my world, Alexander. I can't live under this microscope. People will always think I'm with you for your money. He cupped her face, his voice steady. Then let them think. The truth is, Emily, you gave up your ticket for me before you even knew my name. That's all the proof I need. Her resistance melted. For the first time, Emily allowed herself to believe that maybe love didn't care about social divides or bank accounts. Maybe it only cared about two hearts recognizing each other. A promise. Months later, at the same airport where their story began, Alexander knelt in front of Emily with Sophie by his side. Travelers around them paused, watching in awe as the millionaire CEO held out a velvet box. Emily Carter, he said, his voice thick with emotion, you gave up your seat and changed my life. You gave me back hope, laughter, and love. Will you marry me, not because of who I am in the boardroom, but because of who I am when I'm with you? Emily's hands trembled. Her eyes flicked to Sophie, who whispered, Say yes, Miss Emily. Tears spilled down Emily's cheeks as she nodded. Yes, 1,000 times, yes. Applause erupted around them, but all Emily heard was the sound of Alexander's heart beating against hers as he pulled her close. She had given up her ticket once, never realizing it was the first step toward a destination far greater than any flight, a family, a love, a forever home.